Welcome to the Be Fit Blueprint Podcast. We are your hosts, Cody Israel and Brad Durham. For all you Be Fit members and beyond, this is where we break down the blueprint of building a healthier, stronger you. In every episode, we share actionable tips, expert advice, and real stories to inspire you to level up your mind, body, and lifestyle. Whether you are just taking your first step or pushing for the next breakthrough, we've got the tools to get you there.
What is up, Be Fit? Welcome back to the Be Fit Blueprint. This is episode 11, and joining me today, I have two special guests on here. I have my wife, Jade, and our daughter, Margaret, joining us today.
Hello.
So, we apologize if there is any baby talk on this microphone, but it'll be fun today. So, we're going to talk about a little bit. This last weekend, we just got back from a CrossFit competition down in Springfield, the Heart of America competition put on by Jason Ansley, and they partnered with Proximal Strength, but Jason Ansley and his crew are taking over from here on out. Great competition, flowed very smoothly, and then after that, we're going to talk a lot a bit about Jade's pregnancy, exercise when she was pregnant, and then postpartum, and how exercise has gone since then. So a little bit of everything on tap today. First off, we do want to announce the winner of the t-shirt review from Apple Podcast. All right, and that is going to be McKenna Baker. All right, gave a review on there. So McKenna, if you can, send BeFit CrossFit on Instagram a DM with your shirt size and address, and we can get that out to you. Thank you. All right, so kicking off today with the Heart of America competition. We did the intermediate division with some very other fit individuals. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely makes you feel a little bit humbled.
I'll get right up on that.
Whenever you're competing with people that train at that level, because they are actually, most of them have a lot of time to prepare for competitions like that. So it was a little bit humbling.
Yeah, recently we've been some part-time CrossFitters doing some exercise a couple times a week, just trying to maintain where we're at. But no, overall, I think the competition went very well. Me and Jade did that with a couple other members from our gym, Daniel Kearns and Kelly Daniels, and we had a great time, especially for really none of us ever competing or working out with one another other than me and Jade. We've done a handful of competitions together. So we ended up taking 11th out of 29 overall in the intermediate division. And I think that was probably about where we should have been for the weekend, maybe a couple positions higher. We did have a few errors on our end just because we haven't worked out together, just, timing our synchro movements and stuff like that. But overall, I think it was a pretty successful weekend for everybody.
Yeah, it was really good. It just makes you realize how much those little mistakes cost you, and transitions and stuff like that, for people that are used to working out together and people that, like I said, prepared at great lengths too.
Yeah, and if you do CrossFit in like a class setting and then compare that to a competition setting, it is like another level of intense. Like in a class setting, you're trying to beat your buddy next to you, and then when you're in a competition setting, everyone kind of steps up their game and just does everything a lot faster.
Yeah.
Like, especially like in between movements. Like in the gym, you're going to walk from one movement to the next movement. In a competition, you got people sprinting from one movement to the next movement, just trying to shave off as much time, milliseconds as you can to get the workout done quickly. Mm-hmm. And then in a workout like that, with 4 people, someone like myself, I can kind of hide behind other people to hide my weaknesses. But there was a couple workouts that this weekend definitely exposed some weaknesses for myself. Shout out to Daniel for doing 60 overhead squats in about 3 minutes, so I didn't have to try. Well, I tried one, but that way I didn't have to do any. So
yeah,
they'll really competitions do really good at I should say HOA, because it's the third year we've done it. It does really good. They do a really good job programming and kind of getting a wide variety of movements in there. That way you can't really, you're not relying on one thing. You're not relying on only your gymnastics or only your strengths or, only your conditioning on like machines. They do a really good job at balancing the the exercises between every different modality of exercise.
I will say on that note, this was the first competition that made me really appreciate being just okay. Not just okay, but being proficient on a moderate level at everything, at machines, at gymnastics, at strength, just kind of being that middle of the road, because in a team setting, it really kind of works out. It's not that I'm super good at anything, but I can do everything. And I really appreciated that this time, just because it made me feel a little bit more well-rounded, especially for just being really nervous about going into this competition anyway. It's a big competition. There's a lot of it's a harder competition, one of the harder ones in the Midwest, and as a lot of people like to say, I just had a baby, so it made me feel pretty well-rounded and made me feel confident in a lot of my skills.
Yep. Well, I think that's a good lead into kind of rewinding a little bit, going back to pregnancy training, pre-baby. So Margaret was born on May 7th. So, that would have put you, 9 months before that, like August time frame is when we found out that you were pregnant. And then, for the next 9 months, kind of going through training with really, I don't want to speak too much of it, but I don't want to, not so much of a shift in mindset. You kind of just kept the same mentality throughout the entire pregnancy, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, the shift in mindset was I tried to give myself a little bit more grace without using pregnancy as an excuse to just stop. Which I think in the past, because I have been pregnant, this would have been my third pregnancy. My first two daughters, my middle daughter is 6 years old. She was 6 years old in April. So it had been a long time between pregnancies, and it really felt like I was doing it for the first time. Nature has a way of making you forget the good and the bad in pregnancy, and I kind of just felt like I was starting all over again, like it was my first time. And so I kind of went into it with an attitude of I'm just gonna do what I can do, and obviously I did not at any point train as hard as far as the amount of time that I put in per day, but I did make it a goal that I was going to consistently continue to go to the gym. I wasn't just going to stop going for weeks because I didn't feel good or because I was nauseous. I was at least going to make an attempt to get to the gym. There were a lot of days that I felt really sick, and I told myself, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to start moving. Just get on the bike, just, get on the rower. And if after 10 minutes I still feel this bad, I'll just go home, I'll go home and try again tomorrow. And 100% of the time I stayed for an entire workout. There wasn't one day that I was like, I can't do this after 10 minutes. More often than not, I found that, that the activity, whatever it was that day, took my mind off of the nausea. And it was honestly some of the time, that was the only time that I wasn't sick for that first 20 weeks because I had pretty bad, they call it morning sickness, but it was pretty much all day sickness. But for that first 20 weeks, that physical activity really took my mind off of it, at least for the time.
Yeah, your sickness really kicked in like the evening time. Mm-hmm. I remember that. And just as a background information, we probably should have mentioned at the beginning. So my wife is a firefighter, or at the time she's a firefighter, but she was a captain down in the city of Independence. So she works a 24-hour on, 48-hour off shift, and she maintained that schedule for the duration, or at least the first 38 weeks of the pregnancy. So she was 24 hours at work, 48 hours at home. And kind of your schedule, workout schedule during that time, what did that kind of look like?
So that usually meant that all of my off days, so if I wasn't working, I was working out. So if I was not on a shift day, I would come to the gym and work out, except for Sundays. If I was off on a Sunday, we always rest on Sunday, whether I'm at work or at home. Sometimes when I'm training for something or have, specific goals, I do work out at work. If the city allows me to, I should say. While I was pregnant, I didn't really do very many, maybe a handful of workouts at work if I hadn't had time on my off days. And most of them consisted of just like a 40-minute circuit, like weight circuit, or some stretching, or just walks. So yeah, my schedule usually looked like that. My on days, I rested while I was at work. So that was my rest days from exercise. And my off days were the days that I came to the gym.
Yeah. So like to make it that a little bit easier, like if she worked on a Monday, a Thursday, and a Sunday, she would work out Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and then that schedule just kind of repeats every third day where she works, and just works out the other 2 days unless those days fall in on a Sunday.
I will say I did try to go on walks most days.
We went on a lot of walks.
And I did at work too.
Yeah.
I didn't really, like I said, a lot of days I don't really work out per se at work, but I did try to go on a walk if the weather was bad on the treadmill. All of our stations have, workout equipment. If it was nice outside, I would go on a 20-30 minute walk. So
yeah. So kind of let's break the pregnancy down into like its 3 trimesters. So, you find out you're pregnant the first trimester, the first 13 weeks. What changed, if anything, in your exercise? Whether it be selection or, movements, anything like that. Like, did anything change?
Not really. Like I said, the hardest part about that first 13 weeks is just getting to the gym. This pregnancy, I pretty much immediately, about a week after I found out I was pregnant, I started getting nausea. I was very grateful actually that the nausea did, like you said, it increased as the day went on. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I work out in the mornings. So that was when it wasn't as bad. Now I still always had at least a low level of nausea. But I basically just came in and did class. I did and I stopped doing extra, because normally whenever I'm not pregnant, I'll stay after and work on skills or do a little bit of extra lifting, some accessory lifts. My goal was to just get to the gym and do class. I didn't scale anything the first 13 weeks. I can't think of anything. Mm-hmm. I continued doing everything for that first. So, I think maybe toward the end of the first trimester, I might have stopped doing ring muscle ups because of the being up high and just the
risk versus reward there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so I think of like movements like that would be like quote unquote red flags for pregnancy previously would be like GHD sit-ups, mm-hmm. kipping on the bar, whether it be pull-ups, muscle-ups, stuff like that. You continue to do those throughout that.
I think when I think of stuff like that, anything with a great extent of like abdominal extension, like you said, sit-ups, GHDs, toes to bar. A lot of people, as soon as they find out they're pregnant, they don't hang from a bar anymore. I continued to do those things as long as they felt good, and nothing really felt different.
The BeFit Blueprint is sponsored by Precision Metalworks. Attention, makers, creators, and doers. When precision is key, you need a partner you can trust. That's where Precision Metalworks comes in. With decades of experience crafting high-quality custom metal components, they bring your vision to life with precision engineering, unbeatable craftsmanship, and a commitment to excellence. Whether you're in aerospace, automotive, or looking for that one-of-a-kind custom project, they've got the tools and experience to get it done the right way the first time. Don't settle for less. Choose Precision Metalworks, where innovation meets precision. Visit precision-metal-works.com today, and let's build something amazing together.
And I think a lot of that, especially for people who have listened to our podcast, I think it was episode 6. We had Dr. Trent Rorty, pelvic floor therapist, physical therapist with a specialization in pelvic floor therapy. We talked to her a lot, and and if you listen to that podcast, it was a lot of, if you feel comfortable doing it, you can continue doing that, and so that's not to say anything for anybody that did stop doing those things, but a lot of it from what we have gathered in information is it's okay as long as it feels okay.
And that shout out to Trenton, because Trenton did give me the confidence to continue doing things that still felt good for my body. It's really difficult whenever you go see a doctor or a midwife while you're pregnant, because a lot of times they will recommend that you do what is recommended by national, like the doctors that research these types of things. But the really bad part is there's not a whole lot of research, because it's unethical to do research on pregnant women in a lot of cases. They're not going to say, okay, well, let's try this with this group when it could be dangerous. So I have a really great midwife, and she knows that I exercise a lot. She knows that I lift really heavy. She was my doctor in my other pregnancies whenever I was fighting. It's kind of a don't ask, don't tell thing. If you ask her, do I need to stop doing anything? She'll just say, if you could do it safely before you were pregnant, you can probably continue doing it while you're pregnant. So that was kind of our agreement. I never told her specifically the things I was doing, and she never asked. To me, it seemed that it was more important that I continued to be active while I was pregnant. So, but yeah, shout out to Trenton, because Trenton really gave me the confidence and encouragement to continue doing things after I got pregnant, those early weeks.
Yep. And then we've made it through the first 13 weeks. Nothing really has changed at all. And then we get to, month 4, 5, and 6, the second trimester. And I'm trying to think back, and you'll have a better memory than I do. What changed when we got to that point?
Okay, so as soon as I got out of the first trimester, around 13 or 14 weeks, I stopped doing GHD sit-ups, and it was because they became uncomfortable. That level of extension just became uncomfortable for me.
And for anybody that doesn't know what a GHD sit-up is, on a glute ham developer, if you lock your feet in facing the ceiling, you're going to lay back to full extension to where the front side of your body is completely elongated. All right, so it's completely stretched out, and then you rapidly flex your spine and come back up and essentially take your hands and touch your toes. So you go full extension all the way to full flexion.
And I think I might have actually been able to continue doing those if I had been doing them with my knee, because whenever the beginning of my pregnancy, I was doing them the way that you and I had been doing them with bent knees, using a lot of my core. If I had gone back to the traditional way of doing a GHD sit-up, where you mostly use your quads to sit up, they probably wouldn't have felt as uncomfortable, because I wouldn't have been using as much core. Just the hormones that your body makes when you're pregnant, a lot of those ligaments loosen up and things don't feel as stable. So I think that just that position, trying to use my abdominal muscles in that way with that amount of stretching, just didn't feel right for me. I wish that I had continued, though. I wish I had continued doing sit-ups, like banded sit-ups on an ab mat. Even if I wasn't doing GHD, because now a lot of the research they're coming out with is telling us that women should continue working their abdominals while they're pregnant, because really the only thing that they're finding that increases your incidence and severity of diastasis in pregnancy is weak abdominal muscles. And so now a lot of PTs are recommending that women continue to safely use their abdominal muscles. So I kind of wish that I had done that, because later on in my pregnancy, I did meet with Trenton, and she told me, why don't you try to do some banded sit-ups? And those felt really good. And it was a way for me to actually engage my core, but use the rest of my body so that I could, safely do it without straining my muscles too much.
Yeah, and a banded sit-up is basically sitting on your butt on the ground. You got your feet butterflied, or you could do it with your legs straight out in front, and you have a band attached to a something in front of you, whether it's a part of the rig or something, and you lay back like you're doing a sit-up, holding onto the band, so the band will stretch, and then as you sit up, the band will shorten and kind of pull you up. So it just gives you a little bit of assistance coming up out of that. That way you're not, engaging so abruptly, not bearing down as much as you're
relying so heavily on just your
core muscles and everything,
and your transverse abdominals.
And then in regards to kipping, I believe you continue to do pull-ups, toes to bar, and those things. Not muscle-ups, just because.
Stop muscle-ups at 24 weeks?
I don't know, probably when Margaret was getting bigger in the belly and it was hard to get over the bar.
I think the last workout I did with bar muscle-ups, I was about 24 weeks, and it was when my belly really started to pop out. I tend to catch pretty high, and by that point, my belly I'd really popped. I mean, my stomach doesn't look super pregnant. I kind of just go through that kind of chubby thing until about 23, 24 weeks. So I think the last workout I did, the bar muscle-ups, and they had become more difficult because of my belly, just having to be mindful. I was worried about that, as well as just the extra weight. I had gained a little bit of weight, and gymnastics is just more difficult when you're heavier. So.
Yeah. And I assume, and this is in my head, why toes to bar, you were able to keep doing toes to bar and not GHEs is because in toes to bar, you're not only using your core, you're using a lot of your lats to get behind the bar and a lot of your hip flexors to bring your legs up to the bar. So it's not as strenuous on your core muscles directly.
Yeah, I would say it's not as focused. It's not, especially the way that I do. I'm sure that a lot of people, the way that some people do toes to bar, they do use mostly their abs, but I have a pretty good kip. So I use a lot of, I don't want to say just momentum, but a lot of accessory muscles to get my feet up there. I was doing toes to bar till, I think I have videos of me doing toes to bar when I was 39 weeks pregnant.
Pretty far into it.
I had to bring my legs far
wide
apart to get my toes to the bar though.
So there's the second trimester, and then as we get into the third trimester, it was a lot of the same, wasn't it?
Another thing about the second trimester, we did stop rope climbs.
Oh,
because of height.
Yeah.
Which I was actually pretty happy about that because I do not
completely
like
fine with.
I'm totally fine with that. Aside from that, third trimester, everything we were still doing everything. Box jumps, even. I had a lot of people that seemed kind of concerned about me box jumping. People impressed that I was still doing double unders right up until. But yeah, I think the only things I was still butterflying pull-ups. And chest to bar pull-ups. They got more difficult because I was about 23 pounds up at that point. You think about anything else?
I'm trying to think of barbell movements. Like you continue to do bench press, and I know that's a big one in the I guess pregnancy space, where they recommend not lying on your back for extended periods of time. But I believe more researches came out, even since you were doing bench press when you were pregnant, and came out and basically said that was an okay thing. There was no adverse effects of that.
Yeah,
I can pull that
up. The studies that they're showing, and obviously they used anecdotal, basically studies of women that they didn't tell them to do these things. It was women that said, I'm going to do this anyway. And then I'll let you know how it goes, basically. So they gathered information from that and found no adverse effects from women laying on their back for short periods of time.
Yeah, so
you're not really on your back that long. As long as you're not laying there the whole time. And your body is going to tell you if something's wrong in those situations.
Yeah. Yeah, this study, so they researched, had a group of 6 to 9 month pregnant athletes perform heavy sumo deadlifts and bench presses. Both were 3 sets of 8 with 1 rep in reserve. So they were pretty close to failure, and they monitored fetal blood flow. And then what they came out with, fetal heart rate remained within the normal range and uterine blood flow was not compromised. So the researchers concluded that engaging in heavy load resistance training, including supine exercise, does not pose a risk to fetal well-being in healthy, active pregnant women.
Yep.
So, and then it goes on to say, in general, the female body is well adapted to produce healthy offspring under stress, which may include heavy lifting and periods of energy restriction. So
yeah, there wasn't really any barbell movements that I didn't feel like, aside from Olympic lifts, that I felt like caused any dizziness or any reactions. Sometimes there was one instance I remember where I did a pretty hard Metcon. It was an all-out sprint, and at the end of it, I had a lot of Braxton Hicks. So I think that was just my body's way of saying, hey, calming down a little bit. We're doing a lot here.
Yeah.
But never any pain or I was not dizzy or lightheaded. In those situations, I obviously would have backed off, whatever, but I would have done that whether I was pregnant or not. But I would continue to lift well into the 90%.
Range. Well, because we had our lift off in March, and so you would have been 7 months pregnant at that time. So you basically maxed out your sumo deadlift, or I don't even know if you sumo deadlifted.
No, I didn't.
You regular
I
did.
hate sumo deadlift.
Now, granted, I don't think you didn't actually maxed out your deadlift. You went heavy. You were probably 80, 90%.
I did enough to, make sure that I was well into the 600-pound club.
But if I recall, you did
275.
Yeah, but if I recall, you did back squat the most you've ever back squatted, right? Now, it was low bar.
I matched my max.
Matched your max at 7 months pregnant. So
yeah, I got the same amount that. Well, maybe was it? Yeah.
It was pretty close.
It was pretty close.
Yep. All right. So moving on. So went through first 9 months, and then little Margaret came right out May 7th. All right, at 7:39 p.m. And then what? How soon after that did we get back to, or did you get back to training? I know you were doing pelvic floor stuff pretty quick right after.
Floor stuff like right away, like the first probably 5-6 days after I started doing breathing and some pelvic floor stuff at home, and then I just started walking. Taking her for walks. It was nice outside, so we would go for walks during the day, mostly just to get out of the house because it feels really good to get out of the house. You feel more like a human.
Yeah.
You get some sunlight.
That was when the weather was starting to warm up. It was perfect time for it.
So I probably didn't come back. I brought the baby to the gym a couple times, but I think my first workout, like the first time I came back to class, was probably 3 weeks in. Does that sound right? I think it was probably about 3 weeks. Because I do know that I had been working out. I'd been coming to the gym and done a couple classes before we did Murph. Because I did do a very scaled version of Murph without a weight vest. I think I did ring rows and...
You did push-ups and air squats.
I did push-ups and air squats.
And I did you cut down the mile.
At the end, I think I went ahead and did some pull-ups just because I
think you did. I think you practiced some.
Feel good, and it felt good.
Yeah.
And it was fine. I think, honestly, I was more cautious coming back than I was while I was pregnant, because I think the biggest thing that makes me cautious is just people. People say a lot of things, and people think a lot of things. And generally, I don't really pay too much attention to that, but with you being a coach here and people looking up to you, and you say people look up to me, I didn't want to, I guess, leave a bad taste in anybody's mouth by doing things that people perceived as being dangerous. So I was really hesitant about coming back, and when I did come back, it was just very light barbell stuff. I would try to do class and just move.
Compared to where you were previously.
It's all relative, yes. Yeah. Like people are like, oh, you're still doing this amount. And it's like, well, normally there would be 95 pounds on it. Right now I'm doing 55. And I feel like this is very reasonable, and nothing felt bad. And honestly, for movements like that, moving my body under the barbell, things like that, I probably would have been a little bit less cautious about that. The things that I would have been more cautious about, I think 3 weeks after, one of the first workouts that I did when I came back had box jumps, and I did box jumps, and I feel like afterwards nothing hurt. I just didn't feel like they should. My pelvic floor, everything's all, it's different. If you've had a child, then you probably know what I mean by everything just feels different. So it wasn't painful, and I didn't feel like I was putting myself in danger. It just didn't feel right. So I probably wouldn't do box jumps 3 weeks postpartum again.
Yeah.
But everything else, I probably would have done more. I would have done more weight than people said I should have done.
Yeah. So you're saying you would have, on the Olympic lifts and everything, you would have been less cautious per se. Look, hindsight, I mean, you feel like you could have done more.
I wish I would have listened to my body. Is what I'm saying, and not like what people said I should do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that's too much. You shouldn't do that. I wish that I would have just, if it felt okay, I wish I would have just done it. Like I said with the box jumps, my body's like, you may not be ready for this.
Yeah.
Things aren't quite back where they're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like lifting, like, yes, some Olympic lifts. And I was going slower. I wasn't pushing myself and going all out. I wasn't full on sprinting. I was just moving. But as far as like accessory lifts, like just stationary moving dumbbells, I absolutely felt like I could do very close to the normal amount. And I didn't, just because I was like, oh, well, I just got back. I just had a baby. Well, I should have just grabbed the 35-pound dumbbells. Because it's not like I ever really stopped exercising.
Yeah.
I continued to do those movements up until about the time I delivered. So it's not like I was out for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The BeFit Blueprint is brought to you by the Colony House, where furniture shopping is as comfortable as the pieces you'll find there. With the best selection of furniture and mattresses, they make it easy to love coming home after a long day of crushing your goals. Want to elevate your living space as much as your fitness goals? Head to Riverside and Frederick for a personalized shopping experience you'll actually enjoy at the Colony House in St. Joseph.
All right, so kind of discussed on what you would have done differently after coming back to the gym post pregnancy, and then what was there any other, I guess, things that felt different off, or any struggles that you had coming back? Yeah,
I get something called SPD, which is Symphysis, Pubis, Dysfunction during pregnancy, and a lot of women experience it to some extent, a pretty high percentage, but it's, I think, probably more severe in me than some people, and I don't know why. I did physical therapy with it in prior pregnancies. With each pregnancy, it started sooner, and it was more severe. With my first pregnancy, I didn't really notice it much during pregnancy, but it lasted quite a while after. Second pregnancy started around 30 weeks, and then I did notice it. But those pregnancies, it was completely different because I was doing combat sports at the time. So I put myself in a lot more positions that made those feelings noticeable. This time, it did start early. Probably around 28 weeks, and anything that put my legs in a position that I was trying to bear weight with them split apart, most noticeably split apart laterally.
Like if you were going to do like a lateral lunge or a Cossack squat.
Yes. So like just a normal lunge with my legs front and back was not so bad until it started to get really heavy. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, aside from that, nothing really. It was still irritating, honestly. And a lot of women that have SPD, as soon as they deliver, it's pretty much back to normal. However, I'm not really sure, because I think a lot of women probably don't exercise to the capacity that I do. So I think I notice a lot of these things more because I lift heavy. So maybe other women who also lift heavy have had the same experience with SPD. I'm still experiencing it in certain positions, certain movements, but it is getting better. So I think that's the thing that more than physical therapy, more than stretches and exercises, I think it's just time, because right now I'm still breastfeeding. So that relaxin is still, all those hormones are still happening. And it's really hard for everything to restabilize. Things won't begin to get back to baseline until I'm done breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. So, but it is getting progressively better.
So with the previous two, when you were doing fighting combat sports, did that linger? Was that there until you were done breastfeeding?
Yes. I do remember a noticeable improvement a couple months following weaning, because I weaned both of them at a year. Mm-hmm. I stopped breastfeeding. I quit lactating around a year, or at least started weaning to where I could begin the process of not lactating. And I did notice around that 14-month mark that it improved a lot. So I do think it's heavily affected by pregnancy hormones, just by
breastfeeding and everything. Still. Gotcha. Okay, so that's a lot of what has, the main thing that's kind of still been lingering, that's been kind of troublesome. But now that we are 5 months post-pregnancy, just over 5 months, and we have a competition under our belt, how has training felt, in the last 2 to 3 months, leading into this competition?
Honestly,
how close back to pre-pregnancy, Jade, do you feel?
I honestly think I'm probably 85%. I think a lot of it has to do with not so much the fact that I was pregnant, but just the things that come with being pregnant and postpartum have to do with just the extra nutrition and fluids and electrolytes you need to keep up with breastfeeding, the obvious increase in lack of sleep, which I'm used to anyway from my job, but this just makes it means that at home I'm not sleeping either, or not, not sleeping as well as I could be. She's a good sleeper, but I'm not getting the amount of sleep that I need to be getting for recovery in the sport that I do.
Yeah.
As far as strength, I don't think, we maxed out our clean and jerk a few weeks ago.
In class,
and, and I think I got the same amount that I did when right before I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
So I would say for strength numbers, I'm pretty much where I was before.
Yeah, like top level strength is basically where it was.
Yeah.
Before pregnancy.
I think as far as strength level, now as far as athletic performance, like I said,
like capacity.
Maybe 85%. Now I don't think that it's to do with fitness. I think it's just a lot of all of it together, like skills and just athleticism. Some of that stuff is a little bit rusty. And
just
a lot
by not doing it as much.
Exactly. And I don't know that it's because I was pregnant. I think it's because of my pregnancy, I trained less. So I didn't practice makes perfect. And sometimes those things get a little bit sketchy when you're not practicing them all the time.
And I would even say the last month, 2 months, you're still haven't been, and maybe it's because I haven't been either, but you're still not training as much as you were before pregnancy. And I think that's pretty, that says something to be back to 85% of what you were beforehand. I think that says a lot to just, because you probably cut volume and, maybe half or something during pregnancy or whatever. I just think that says a lot for how little you need to be able to maintain what you have.
Well, and just how important that foundation is, just having that to come back to and knowing that I don't have to maintain it at that level and I can still come back and pretty much have that. I mean, like you said, I've cut down a lot of the volume. I can still pretty much lift the same weights for the same amount, when I need to. Yeah. It's just, like I said, I have less time right now to.
Yeah, and I think there's some research on that. Like strength is a lot easier to maintain when you are like doing it, every so often. I don't know if that's once a week, twice a week, versus like conditioning. Conditioning comes and goes a lot faster, and that is a lot of what CrossFit is, especially CrossFit competitions. Like, yes, you need to be strong, but you need to be able to move fast and move well. While also being strong. And I think that is what probably takes, that's probably where that other 15% is of the 100%.
And I am honestly just very impressed that it's only 15%, that I still, can do the things that I can do as fast as I can. Yeah. And it probably has to do with continuing to do those things while I was large and pregnant, and while those things are more awkward because your body adapts and overcomes. And I'm sure that the increased blood flow during that time, it helps and it hurts, but that cardiac or the cardiac output while you're pregnant, because of that increased blood volume, some of that carries over after you deliver, so you still have the capacity to supply that amount of blood with that amount of blood not being there, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it gives you a little bit of a boost afterwards. But I'm still not used to moving. I'm not back. I don't feel I guess I haven't had enough practice with this body after burping and doing all of those other things with the other body.
Yeah. With your pregnant self. Yeah.
Yes. So like you were saying, it's just that 15% will come with me just.
It's essentially just regaining skill acquisition, because it's basically learning how to. It's relearning how to be efficient doing certain movement patterns, I think is what it comes down to. Because from a coach standpoint, I think your conditioning is probably just as good as it was. We just talked about your strength. It's just as good as it was. That 15%, I think, is just regaining skill acquisition and being efficient. Relearning movement patterns. Yep.
Getting the endurance to do, the same amount of pull-ups that I could do, or being able to string those bar muscle ups or the ring muscle ups, because bar muscle ups kind of something clicked. I came back and tried to do them. I was probably, I don't know, 6-7 weeks
somewhere
after
in there.
I had the baby. I tried to do them and I just couldn't do them. I could not do them. I was like,
I remember.
Don't know why. And then one day I could do them again. So
and I just took some time. So that's quite a bit about training. Let's kind of touch a little bit, while we got a little bit of time here, let's kind of touch a little bit about nutrition. So what did nutrition look like throughout this whole time? Because I know when people get pregnant, sometimes that changes. Just what did that look like from pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, and now post-pregnancy?
I would compare it to the exercise, honestly, on that same scale. I tried to continue eating nutritious foods like I did before. I gave myself a little bit more grace. I wouldn't say I gave myself an excuse to eat like garbage, because I hardly ever do that. But there are a lot of times at the beginning of pregnancy, especially if you suffer from that pregnancy sickness, that there's only certain things that sound good. Sometimes that I would eat something, or I'd cook something and it would just sound terrible to eat. Then I would eat it thinking, it's going to make me feel better to eat it. And then I would just puke. So that probably would have happened regardless of what I was eating. If I had just gone to get a cheeseburger that didn't sound terrible versus the spaghetti that I made at home, it was probably going to be the same outcome.
Yeah, I remember a couple of times you cooking in there, just struggling to even cook the food.
Yeah. That was rough. And then having to try to choke the food down after, just because dinner was the worst. A lot of nights I didn't even eat dinner. But because, and I think this is something that helped from being pregnant before, I remember the other times, because I had morning sickness with my previous pregnancies. This was probably the worst. There were nights that I cried myself to sleep because I was so sick, and that's pathetic. But I remember this because I was thinking, this is terrible, many, many nights. And it didn't matter what I ate. So using that foundation, knowing that it didn't matter what I ate, I continued to try to eat things that were good for my body. I continued to try to eat fruit and vegetable and protein. It was really hard to get protein. Protein, most of the times, the smell of cooking meat made me want to vomit. So trying to eat it was very difficult. But most of the time I did try to make an effort to eat foods that had nutrients in them. Now, on the same token, there were a couple times that I was like, I'm going to go try the wavy fries at Sonic.
Yep. And we did that, and the pickle fries.
Yeah. And you know what? I was right. I still felt just as nauseous as I ate them as I would have if I had eaten some cucumbers or, anything like that.
The BFit Blueprint is brought to you by Bratton Dental Company, where your smile is our priority. At Bratton Dental, we combine state-of-the-art technology with personalized care to give you the confidence you deserve. From routine cleanings to advanced cosmetic and restorative treatments, our expert team is here to help every step of the way. Ready to love your smile? Visit BrattonDentalCo.com today and schedule your appointment. Bratton Dental Company, bringing life to your smile.
What was different, if anything, between this pregnancy and the previous two, other than being 6 and 8 years apart?
I moved a lot more. I continued working out. With my other two pregnancies, I was not a weightlifter. I didn't start CrossFit until right before I got pregnant with my second daughter, which was about 7 years ago.
We should also probably get some background. With the previous two, she was into combat sports. She was a
I was an MMA fighter, so I trained jiu-jitsu and stand-up striking. So when you're pregnant, you probably shouldn't do that stuff. It's not like, lifting some weights and, like people are punching you and you're grappling, and there's a lot more opportunity to injure yourself or the baby after that first trimester. So whenever I was pregnant the first 2 times, I didn't spar. I would roll as in grapple with very trusted, experienced individuals at a very slow pace. But honestly, being in the gym made me feel so sad because I couldn't train to the capacity that I was used to, that I just didn't go to the gym. Mentally, those first 2 pregnancies were really difficult for me because I didn't have weightlifting. I didn't know anything about lifting. I would have been inexperienced. And honestly, at that point in my life, I wouldn't have trusted starting to lift weights while I was pregnant because I didn't know anything about it. So I just didn't do anything. With Virginia, my second one, I had started CrossFit. I did come in because I was doing 2 times a week. So I did come in, but I was also very hesitant because I didn't know anything about lifting. I was an inexperienced lifter. So I scaled everything. I lifted very, very light. I did a lot of ring rows. I will say that my ring rows are excellent because I did so many ring rows while I was pregnant with Virginia. But I was very inactive while I was pregnant with both Elowen and Virginia. I gained a lot of weight. I gained close to 60 pounds with both of them. I started at a lighter weight with both of them because I didn't have as much muscle on my body. But I did gain 55 pounds, 55 to 60 pounds with both of them. And they were both large babies. Both of them were 8.5 pounds. With Margaret, yes, I would say that I ate a little bit better. I didn't eat as much fast food. And I was definitely I was consistently getting into the gym, 4 times a week.
Yeah. So you were moving more.
Moving more, lifting more, maintaining muscle. I think it comes down to that. Me maintaining muscle has made all the difference in my pregnancy and my recovery from pregnancy. So I probably gained, around the recommended amount of weight, probably 22 to 25 pounds.
Yeah, I remember what you started at. I don't remember what you finished at.
I don't even honestly know what I started out. I was 150 to 155. So within the recommended amount, so we'll even say 20 to 30 pounds. Who knows? Because my weight fluctuates so much anyway.
Yeah.
It was gone immediately after I had her. Without doing anything special, because I think that's what happens when you gain the recommended amount of weight, is it the baby comes off. And the baby was much smaller than the other babies too. Margaret came out 6'15". Yeah. And she was tall. All of my babies have been tall. The other 2 were 22 inches and Margaret was 21 inches. But that extra 1.5 pounds of baby, my OB had told me before that it didn't really matter how much weight I gained, that the baby was going to be the size the baby that was going to be, barring any kind of gestational diabetes. Anecdotally, the only thing that I can say with that is it would have to be what I ate. Like the amount of, not just what I ate, but the lack of physical activity. It was the weight gain. Yeah. It had to have been, because the only other difference, obviously, same mom, my other kids have a different dad, but he's a smaller human being than you are, than Cody is. So if anything, this baby should have been larger. Yeah. If you're just going by genetics. But if you go by the fact that I gained double the amount with the first 2 that I did with this one, I
don't think you can totally ignore that.
I don't think you can ignore that 1.5 pounds of baby. And I think I probably could have saved myself a lot of physical and mental heartache. Not that having big babies is awful, but it was a lot easier. Labor and delivery was a lot easier with a 6'15" baby than it was with an 8'9" baby. Yeah. Over and over again. Head size, everything. It was just, and also just trying to be active and feel good when you gain 55 pounds. The end of my pregnancies with my other girls were terrible. I had sciatica. I could hardly walk without having pain. It was really, really bad those last few weeks. And with Margaret, we
went on a 4-mile hike the day before she was born.
The day before she was born, we went on a 4-mile hike outside. I felt good. I mean, sometimes I had a little bit of back pain, but it wasn't anything. It was like from a pre-existing injury that would get, tight sometimes. And obviously the SPD from like moving my legs apart in certain angles. But everything else, like I felt really good. Obviously by the end I was just mentally done being pregnant. But I was doing workouts.
Up until.
And I just remember I had some self-pity days because I just hate being pregnant. But I had some days that I would get through a workout and think, man, it is amazing that I am still able to do all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
As fast as I can, like I can still do box jump overs. And look at me.
Yeah.
It was probably very, very silly to watch, or just burpees.
Yeah.
I could do burpees up until the end. It looked funny, but I just had a great appreciation.
Yeah. What do you think I don't know, we could probably, this list could be very, very long, but if we had to narrow it down to like, 3 things that you think benefited you the most throughout this pregnancy compared to the other pregnancies, what do you think they were?
It is a long list, but I think I can pick 3 pretty easily. Continuing to lift heavy if you're comfortable.
So maintaining
muscle mass, because I think you're going to be more comfortable. Your back is stronger, your body's stronger. You're also going to be able to find your way back to your pregnancy body composition. The more muscle you have on your body.
Yep, and we've talked a lot about that in previous podcasts. The more muscle you have, the easier it is to lose weight.
Yeah, so I don't think that you can hope, as an experienced lifter, I don't think you can hope to gain muscle while you're pregnant, but you can absolutely maintain most of what you have, and was a huge game changer. Having a supportive partner who encourage me to feed myself nutritious foods, instead of him coming home and saying, oh, she looks so sad, she probably doesn't want to cook, well, I'll just go get her Taco Bell. He watched me suffer over that meat and want to throw up and just looked at me.
Now, I did cook when I needed to. I didn't just force her to cook my food for me and, just enjoy my food while she was over there.
No, but what I'm trying to say is he did not let me use pregnancy as an excuse to eat like an a-hole. There were a lot of times that I was like, man, I would really like to go get some ice cream. And he'd say, okay, let's go get some ice cream. No big deal. And we would get ice cream and we'd be happy, but not every day. We weren't going to eat Mexican food every day. We weren't eating, chicken sandwiches, and we weren't eating garbage all the time. He was still encouraging me. He was every week, what are we going to meal prep this week? He was very supportive when I was like, I want to make freezer meals. So just having somebody that encouraged me to not use pregnancy as an excuse to be lazy, or days that I was like, I don't feel like working out today. And instead of being like, well, you should just rest, babe, he was like, well, why don't you just come to the gym and see what happens? Knowing that I would get to the gym and I would work out because he knows me. So that was a really big thing. And then 3rd would probably be, I think just mentally, just knowing that it's temporary, just reminding myself that this is temporary, that it's not always going to be this way. I'm going to get my body back, which not even physically, but I'm going to be able to do the things that I want to do with my body. I'm going to be able to climb the rope. Even though I hate climbing the rope, I still like having the option to climb the rope. I still like having the option to jump up and do stupid things on the rings, without worrying about hurting the human being that I'm carting around. Just mentally reminding myself this is temporary and it's 100% worth it. So because pregnancy is very much a mental game for me, it's very hard for me to be pregnant mentally.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you're not the only one, but that's kind of what this whole podcast was about, to kind of give people your experience, because everybody here at the gym knows who you are. All right. They know who I am, obviously, because I'm their coach. They know we just had a baby. So we just wanted to give them a little bit of insight into your experience, our experience of, going through pregnancy, having a baby, post-pregnancy, leading up to a CrossFit competition, our experience with that. And, to kind of what we talked about on the podcast with Trent, and there is a lot of quote unquote fear mongering in the pregnancy space. So we just want to let people know that it is okay to do things while you're pregnant.
I do want to add this. I encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider.
Absolutely.
Whenever they tell you not to do this or do that, I encourage you to ask questions. Be curious, because a lot of times they don't even know why they're telling you not to do something. So find a healthcare provider that you are confident in, that you trust, and that is willing to do the research for you so that you don't feel scared to do everything, because it's really important to stay active while you're pregnant. Contrary to what people say, it's not okay to gain 80 pounds while you're pregnant. It's not. It's not good for the baby. It's not good for you. You need to continue to be active. You need to continue to feed yourself good things for yourself and for your baby. And when your doctor's like, oh, I would just take it real easy, don't get your heart rate above 140, ask them why. Ask them, why can't I do this? Why can't I lift weights? Why can't I lift more than 40 pounds if I can normally deadlift 300 pounds?
Yeah.
Ask questions so that you can feel confident in the decisions that you make while you're pregnant.
Yep. We are not giving medical advice. We are giving our experience. We want you to be, like she said, open-minded, ask questions, dive into some research. That way you can have the best experience you can have and your baby can have, during pregnancy and post-pregnancy. So we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We will be back in December for episode 12. Thank you guys so much. As always, leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for your chance to get a free t-shirt. We will ship that out to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the BeFit Blueprint podcast. If you would, please subscribe, like, comment, and share on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, or whichever platform it is that you listen to the BeFit Blueprint podcast.